Hi, this is Dee Dee Pfeiffer, and you're listening to the Don't Go Out There podcast with these awesome guys.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast. Just want to thank all of our fans and listeners. Really appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. Before we get into tonight's film review, just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on the website. All of our episodes and interviews, if you want to check those out. We've done some incredible interviews in the past. Go check them out there in a specific tab by themselves so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of episodes on Apple or Spotify, etc. We also have our store if you want to grab a shirt, a mouse pad, a hat, all that good stuff. We'd love to see your pictures, rep your favorite podcast. And Shan's Etsy page is also attached if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. And the last thing I want to shout out on our website is our Patreon. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. If you want to support us, help us pay the bills, as we say. Or if there's a movie you want us to review, that option is available as well. Just check out our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Also, if you haven't noticed, we've recently joined the Believe Network. So there's some ads on our program now. But if you want ad-free content, go check us out on Blood Donors. The ad-free episodes will be available there. We appreciate your support. We hope you enjoy the episode.
All right, guys, we're going to conclude Thriller Month this week with Brother Mike's pick. Mike, you want to announce your pick and why you picked it?
Yes, sir. I went with 2024, which shout out to Nico for that. Mother's Instinct. And part of the reason this month became Thriller Month is I watched this movie with my wife and I was like, I don't think this movie is outstanding or anything, but damn it, I want to review it for some reason. I really loved Anne Hathaway and Jessica Chastain in this movie. I thought their characters were great. And again, I think it's a fun 90-minute watch. Like, I don't think anything's too slow or too boring. And again, kind of like Blue Velvet, where the movie is set in like middle America, like Americana, especially in the 60s. Like, this is suburban town, the sun's always out, et cetera, et cetera. And pretty much everything horrifying happens in that time. And again, I love the fact that it's set in the 60s. It's not perfect, right? I mean, there's a couple times where I think the movie drags, but I don't think it hurts the film for me. I think the performances carry their weight of the two leading ladies there. And it's a story that's sad, but also twisted. It feels like the best way I could describe it is it really feels like a upscaled Lifetime movie from the early 2000s, right? Like where something murderous happens, something bad happens, and it ends up turning into something even worse. It's really what I feel about it. And I grew up watching those because of my mom. Shout out to Sherry for making me watch those back in the day. And that's why I picked it. And that's why we ended up with Thriller Month. So if you didn't like any of the movies, sorry, but it was time for a change of pace.
At least we got to do Blue Velvet.
That's right, buddy.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, great movie. Anywho, Mother's Instinct. I liked it, Mike. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it more on my second watch, to be honest with you. I will say it's kind of like going to Gordo's. You get you a Gordo burger, wonderful bread, Cuban bread. But, that hamburger patty is just not as good as you was hoping it would be. Like, I love the beginning and the end of the movie. The middle is where it kind of like, and it's not even that it's bad. It's just that I just don't believe these characters would act like that. Like, they're really extra, like they're best friends and they're like going like at each other's neck, like off the rip. And I don't know. I just didn't buy it. But like you mentioned, the two leading ladies are incredible. This movie is not a 10 out of 10, but Anne Hathaway is. And that's just my thoughts. Go ahead, Brian.
Amen.
Yeah. So I may be wrong in this. I don't know, but I didn't like it as much as I think that you guys did. I didn't hate it though. In fact, the ending brought the movie up so much more for me. The whole thing just drug. And most of all, it felt predictable for 95% of the movie. And I mean, predictable's fine for me. I mean, I like mindless slashers, so that's fine. But in my opinion, if you're going to be predictable, you got to be more than that. And the rest of the movie just didn't keep my attention, is all. I mean, again, not a bad movie, just not really my wheelhouse, to be honest. My sister Anne, I think, did amazing. Everyone honestly acted amazing. You know, Jessica Chastain, the cinematography from Benoit Delhomme was great, and the ending. I mean, like I said, that's what saved this one for me. And like I said, it's a ton of times on the show. The ending is what makes or breaks you, and it's the last thing you leave with people. So, in my opinion, at least the movie stuck that. You know, it'll get a decent score, but I was just bored with it for the majority.
You know, my brother-in-law Brian said some really good things there. I'm gonna have to agree with.
Whoa.
Brother-in-law.
What the hell?
I'm gonna have to agree with you. I didn't hate this movie, but the word that I used, you know, words have meanings. People say overrated, and people get up in arms like, "Oh, how dare you?" That's not saying it's bad. This movie to me is mid, and I don't mean as in mid as in it's awful. That's not what the word means. This is middle of the road. I think it's a okay movie. I watched this movie January 11th of this year for the first time because I decided, you know, I was going to watch all the Neon movies since I watched all of the A24 movies. So this one just came up and I watched it. And my initial thoughts were, man, that was the most elaborate and well-planned kidnapping I've ever witnessed. I think on this watch through, I realized my main issue with it. I'm going to save it till my closing thoughts so that we go through the scene by scene and I get my thoughts in, and then I'll tell you what my main issue with the movie is. All in all, I think it's fine. It's a just fine movie. Mike, if you like this one, I want to suggest one to you. It's called Eileen. It's also Neon. It also takes place in the 60s, 1964. It also has Anne Hathaway in it. It also has Thomasin McKenzie from Last Night in Soho. Fantastic movie. So I recommend that movie to you because it's a thriller, and I liked it more than Mother's Instinct, but I think this is an okay movie.
All right. Y'all ready to get to the scene by scene?
Shout out to the superior. Yeah, shout out to the superior Hathaway, Ann, not Brian.
I don't think
The
he'd even.
fuck did I do?
Hey, you can't even argue that, brother.
I mean, hey,
She's elite.
with all due respect, she's got the superior genes. So
That's my blood.
Hey man, if I was Brian, I'd be singing Sweet Home Alabama. Anywho, the film starts with opening credits as we see Alice watching Celine
You
from
just
the window.
suggested you broke up. Hold on, brother. Hold on.
Well,
Hold on.
I'm trying to
brother.
do scene by
You
scene
broke
here,
up
man.
there. Did you just suggest incest? Did you just suggest incest?
Roll Tide.
You can take it however you want to. All I know is my family tree would look like a toothpick. But anywho, let's go.
Roll Tide.
All right, the film starts with opening credits as we see Alice watching Celine from the window, picking flowers and getting in her car to leave. Alice goes into Celine's house, closing the curtains. Celine makes it to the school to pick up her and Alice's boys to take them home. Title card as the boys go wash their hands upstairs and Celine notices her curtains closed. She opens them up to a surprise birthday party. She's ecstatic, hugging Alice and her husband Damien. Celine thanks everyone as Alice gives her present from everyone, a pearl necklace. Granny Jean does a magic trick with the boys before she takes her heart pills. Alice goes after Theo, concerned with Max's cookies. The boys show their mamas their secret tunnel, and Alice makes Theo assure her that he'll answer when she calls. Celine reassures her friend, saying she's a great mother, and they go get another drink. That night, the two couples are still dancing and partying, having a darn fine time. The two men start talking politics as Alice proposes another drink, but Celine says she's had enough. Damien says Alice would make a fine journalist, and Simon says he wants another child. However, Alice seems to want to get back to her career at the Gazette. Alice storms to the kitchen upset. Celine tells her if she wants to go back to work, do it, and she'll help her with her son and upkeep of the house. That's a damn good friend. Damien takes Celine up the stairs, but they both fall over laughing. Alice is upset with Simon bringing up them struggling to have a baby as both couples start getting intimate until Alice dries up hearing about Simon wanting another kid. He asks why she wants a job. He already makes good money. He suggests writing for the school paper, but that does not go over well for her. Simon apologized for last night as Celine tells them Max isn't going to school. He's under the weather. Alice is working in her garden and sees Max on the ledge of the balcony messing with a birdhouse. She fails to make it through the tunnel and runs to Celine's house. She runs upstairs and sees Max has fallen below to their horror. Celine runs downstairs and finds her boy and holds him. Brian, that's the opening set of scenes. What do you think?
It's rough. The 1960s, where you can own this big, beautiful house in a beautiful Americana-esque neighborhood and a car on one income. That house would be like $1 million today. Sidebar, I would love to live in the 50s and 60s, I think. Anyway, I'm just jealous. But this opening shot with Alice creepily looking out of the windows at Celine as she leaves and then sneaking over, I was like, what in the Desperate Housewives is going on here? But I love this little swerve that they throw at us with the surprise party here. I think the writing does a good job of setting up the dynamic and the difference between Celine and Alice, where, on the surface, they seem the same and cookie cutter. But you have Alice who can have another kid anytime they want to, but wants to return to work. And then you have Celine who is happy at home, but just wants another child. So it sounds like another line of an Alanis Morissette song there. During the party, we see Alice and Celine both change their dresses in the middle of the party for no apparent reason. Everything was just more grand in the 60s. But then we just get this devastating scene with Max. And, as a parent, just, you don't even have to say what a nightmare that this would be. But come on, Alice, you could have made it through that fucking bush, which is obviously proven later. And I know you needed that moment later to make Celine even more pissed. But maybe I would have given her another obstacle here. Because, as soon as I saw it the first time, I was like, oh, come the fuck on. You could have made it through that bush. Plus, you never take your eyes off the prize. Like, don't go through the house. You stay under there screaming for Celine, and you break his fall if he does fall. I don't know. Just poor decision making there from the girl that I shamefully used to always get mixed up with Bryce Dallas Howard. I will admit that. Go ahead.
Nah, there ain't no shame in that. They do look alike.
There you go. Oh, they absolutely look alike, bro. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. I really like this little opening here because kind of like with Blue Velvet, like I mentioned earlier, I love a thriller that takes place in suburbia America, especially in a different time period. I thought it was a fun way to open. And, we get, they foreshadow all this like creeping around stuff with a surprise party, right? It's foreshadowing for creeping around her house and stuff that happens later with Alice here. But excuse me, golly, I get Alice and Celine mixed up because, like you mentioned, Brian, they are alike on the surface. But then we dig a little deeper, and that's not the case. By the way, I don't get the hype about pearls, as like a jewelry. Like, I don't understand why they're so valued and why people wear them. And like, they look fine. Like, I feel like there's better looking jewelry. By the way, do grandmas still do cool things like little magic tricks and stuff like that or like leave like really bad average candy around the house so you can just walk by and grab some? Like, I feel like is that something grandmas still do? I don't know. I feel like grandmas are out on TikTok shaking their ass now. Like, that's not
losing recipes.
That's what I'm saying, man. Come on, man. Dang. Anyway, and again, they're setting this background for Alice being a little bit overbearing, right? That kind of mom that's like overprotective, overthinks things like that, with the scene with Theo here. But again, even if that's false, and we'll touch on Theo, I'm sure, as a character. But again, just here in this scene, again, he's pretty inconsequential. But I love this little look into 60s America, right? This is what adult friend groups did back then. Look at how they talk politics from different sides of the aisle, and no one wants to kill each other or leave or anything like that. They're still drinking and dancing and having a good time. But by the way, this time period was in that middle ground for women, right? Where they were in the workforce, but it wasn't always viewed that well. Like, this kind of touches on it a little bit here, but never really hints at it again throughout the movie. It just kind of has it as like a narrative point, and then it moves on from it, which I don't know. I would have liked him to kind of hit about it a little bit more later. And by the way, suggesting that she should write for the school paper, so fucking insulting. Jesus Christ, man. You could have just said, no, I don't want you to write. That's what I would have said. That sounds a lot better than, yeah, go write your little articles or whatever. That's how that comes off. I hate it. Man, this is just an absolutely gut-wrenching scene. It would absolutely wreck me if this happened to me. And I can't even imagine, I think Hathaway and Chastain are fucking awesome here, man. Like the way they...
Thanks.
Anne Hathaway, not Brian, not Brian, Anne. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
You can see how I can mix it up.
No, I can't. No, I can't.
I said no, Bo, no.
No, that's right. That's right. Anyway, great scene. Sad scene, but obviously I think it's portrayed really well with the two actors. I think they're great.
Yeah, I like the opening credits, and the score really sets a tone for a thriller. Like I said with Blue Velvet, that goes so far. It's a great choice there. Showing Alice entering Celine's house and grabbing a knife, that's a little bit more dramatic than it needed to be. It paints the picture like she's going to be, the killer in the movie, but she was just grabbing a knife for cake. They plant the seeds here very early on for two major plot points. Granny has to take her pills, and Theo has an allergy, all within the first 8 minutes of the film. Later that night, everyone's ripping cigs. Simpler times, man. But yuck. Political talk, I'd leave. Who likes to talk politics at a party? This movie captures the era perfectly, though. The look, the fashion, the dialogue, it's all very well done. And then Max falling, that's a heck of a way to end the opening set of scenes. How did he die, though? That could never be me. I would have tucked and rolled, but I guess I'm built different. It's a solid open. Go ahead.
Losing recipes. Alice joins them and she sees Celine holding his bloody head. Alice goes to her dark home and she looks devastated. We see the broken birdhouse as Alice and Simon go over to their house. Damien hugs Simon but is very cold to Alice. He asks for time with the family alone and the couple leaves. Alice hears Celine crying and screaming uncontrollably next door, devastated. Next morning at breakfast, they tell Theo what happened with Max, but he doesn't seem to care. We got a psychopath in the work. Alice has him stay home, and she expresses concern he didn't understand what happened to Simon. He assures her people handle trauma differently as Alice notices Celine watching her from the window. She knocks on the door several times to no answer. Alice goes back home but is unable to find Theo. She goes to her backyard calling his name and finds Theo with Celine talking about Max. Alice scolds him and she asks Celine if she's avoiding her, which seems like it because she walks away from her. Alice is blaming herself for Max as she scrubs the hell out of a dirty pot. Theo wants to go next door to get his bunny, but they say no and to just sleep with them tonight. We're at the viewing for Max as the priest speaks. Damien goes up to speak, breaking down, sobbing as he talks of Max and his mother. Everyone goes up to see Max, and Theo sees his bunny and makes a scene, saying, "The bunny is mine, and they must flee the church." Simon scolds him as Alice says Celine knew that was his toy, wondering why she did that. Alice watches him leave the service as we transition to 1 month later. We're at the school with the kids having fun as Celine arrives. Another mother greets her, surprised to see her as Celine faints walking to Theo. She wakes up and Alice checks on her. She asks why she came here. Being here only makes it worse. The house was so quiet, alone with my thoughts, acknowledging she pushed her away. Celine says she's sorry and needs Alice's friendship. She tells Alice to go watch the recital and they share a smile. Brian, that's the next set of scenes. What'd you think?
Will I get canceled if I say that Theo looks like he got hit with a bit of the tism? I mean, I don't mean like full on. I just mean like he got grazed, like just nicked a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he's just missed out. Hopefully that's not offensive. I don't know. I'll blame Mike for some reason.
It's
Okay,
all right.
there you go.
It's okay.
This set of scenes does a really good job of portraying just that dark cloud that's over everything. Like, as it should be after something like that, of course, but the movie could have missed on giving us that, and it didn't. So bravo to that. Alice and Celine's friendship now, it has this dark cloud too. And I mean, yeah, you feel bad for Celine and what she's going through, but also you really have to empathize with Alice because everything is suddenly awkward. And you have this layer of her just really starting to feel bad for wanting the things that she wants, like the job and everything I talked about in the first set of scenes there. You know, I mean, we find out how layered Alice's character is with her struggling, as we find out later on with surviving that car accident, you know, her parents were in, and now she's struggling with this guilt here with her friend. But it's really in this set of scenes, I think, that I was like, oh, okay, well, I see what's going to happen. And it started becoming very predictable. And so I was like, I was hoping they'd throw me a swerve or something to keep me entertained till the ending. And it didn't really. But I can appreciate the performances from these two just juggernauts of the silver screen right here.
You know, I don't know what I would do or say if I had to go over to I just wouldn't have gone over to their house after this, not going to lie, because I definitely don't know what I would do or what I would say, especially if I saw this happen or I saw it about to happen. And I do know this. I don't know that I could quite make sense of her blaming Alice, scolding Alice. And I touch on that a little bit later. I found that way to be interesting, but again, I have more thoughts on it later. By the way, and this is a problem now in America, but it really sets up in this scene here. These homes are too goddamn close together. I don't need to sit in my bedroom window and be able to look into your living room. I don't want to do that shit. Further apart, more space, not less space. Damn. Again, my parents didn't really have this conversation about death with me in this way, you know, like they had with Theo here. It just sort of something that I understood or kind of gathered, where one day my Papa Joe's there and the next he's not, like he's not here anymore and he's no longer here. Like I'm not going to see him again. And I don't know, this, the topic of kids and death, again, another point I think they try to make, but the movie runs out of time to like really go back to. I don't know. You know, the same thing with like, you know, women working around this time, you know, those same kind of things there. Hey man, since you won't talk to me, stay away from my kid, right? Like, don't shun me, don't ignore me, and then I see you in the yard with my kid. Like, I don't know, man. I know you're going through a rough time, but that would also piss me off too. And you know, Theo's a little old here to not be able to sleep without this stuffed animal dog.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, I know he just had something rough happen. His friend died, and it's a tough thing, and kids, you know, go through their grief differently and all that. All that. I respect it all. But why was sleeping with this rabbit again, man? All right, man. By the way, this pastor does not talk like our man Paul from Midnight Mass. This man talks like President Obama, and I don't mean that in a good way, because he sounds like a ripoff Obama. Obama could actually speak really well. This guy has his voice, but doesn't have his passion. Anyway, devastating scene here at the funeral, though. I mean, we already sort of set this scene where things being awkward, but now they're attending the funeral. I really love the tension that the scene gives and how, you know, you're starting to get the vibes of how Celine feels about Alice. And I get the bunny thing, right? If you're a kid, that bunny is so important. And I would be pissed off as a parent, you know, for putting my kid's bunny in your kid's casket. However, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Just go buy a new bunny, whatever. But let's not make a big scene at the funeral over this fucking stuffed animal, kid. All right? Like, I don't have that. Like, man, sit down, man. Sit down is all I'm saying. That would have bugged me. Both things are true, right? Like, just, I hate it. Again, she gets taken away, and I thought that was an interesting thing. They just kind of did that a lot back then to a lot of people, where they would just kind of institutionalize them for a month or two to kind of get them right. Anyway, you know, both things are true. Like I mentioned, let's not let this woman near a school though too quick. You know, let's not let her near a bunch of kids. Something's clearly off, and I do feel awful for Celine, but you could tell like this facade that she's putting on, this fake niceness, it's starting to show through. You could tell she's totally lost it. She snapped. And I think Hathaway is brilliant, not Brian and Hathaway playing this character, where she's towing the line of making us believe that she's all better now, but also starting to absolutely be batshit crazy. So I think she does a good job of kind of towing that line here.
Yeah, very somber open to this set of scenes. Like, I couldn't imagine the pain that Celine and Damien are feeling. Alice going and banging on Celine's door the next day, that was bold too. Give the woman some space, jeez. And I mean, you saw him up there, Alice. You should have stood underneath him, like Brian said. You should have stood underneath him and just yelled for Celine until she grabbed Max. You could have also caught him when he fell. Because when she talked to Celine through the hedges, that gap sure did look big enough for her to fit through. And like you said, we see it later. Theo, I can't sleep without my bunny. Grow up, loser. Something that I've never seen anywhere but the movies. A woman wearing a black veil over her face at a funeral. Maybe it's because we just don't do that in East Tennessee, where I'm from. But I've never seen it. It's always been weird to me when I see it in movies or in TV. Theo crying and making a scene over that stupid bunny in the funeral. I wouldn't have been able to sit down for 3 days if I did that at his age. What are we talking about here? And this is the 60s. They would have whooped his butt. When Celine passed out at the party, Alice sure didn't seem like a concerned friend at all. She was so distant and cold. Like, I get that Celine may have pushed her away over the past month, but real friends don't let you push them away when they need you. So I didn't really buy that. But decent story progression in this set of scenes. We're moving on.
Simon is driving them home, and Alice looks stoic. Celine has him over for dinner, and Theo gives her the coconut cream cake. Damien snaps on Celine as Simon says she knew it was too soon to come over. Celine gives Theo her bunny and apologizes for taking Bunny. She didn't want Max to be all alone, and the two hug. Alice is a bit weirded out seeing this as they make small talk about the recital. Simon offers they come back another time, but Celine insists they stay for cocktails. Alice joins her to help as Theo tells her dad needs matches. She takes them to Simon, and Theo abruptly asks if she's going to have another baby. She says no, she can't, and he keeps prying. Celine tells him in a child-friendly way that she can't have another baby. Alice walks in and stops him, and they go back to the living room. Alice heads upstairs, and she looks into Max's old room, seeing that Damien is kind of living in there. He confronts her, asking if she misses him. She tries to walk away, but he hugs her creepily and asks if she misses his son. He cries and goes in the room, shutting the door. The ladies are outside smoking, and Celine tells her he blames her for the death. Alice brings up her parents' death, thinking she should have done something more, and how Simon had her see a therapist after becoming a mother. Celine is not having it. She asks her about what guilt. Celine says the circumstances weren't the same. I failed my son, and she cries. Next day, assuming, and Celine asks them how their day was and asks if Theo can come over for a bit. Alice hesitantly lets him over for an hour, and she tends to her garden. She sees Theo on the balcony and yells out to him to get inside. She makes it through the tunnel this time and tells her to go inside. Celine reveals that she was there with him, and she notices that she made it through the tunnel for her kid. She apologizes and takes Theo downstairs. Alice is talking to Simon about thinking she's testing her, and Simon thinks it's dangerous to think like that. Breakfast time, and Theo asks, "Where's the damn breakfast?" She snaps out of it and whips up some toast and gets him some orange juice. She asks about his birthday party, and Theo says Celine first, then Granny Jean. Celine is at his birthday party now, and you can tell she's struggling until she sees Theo and they wave. Cake time, and Granny Jean talks to Celine. She says children don't always know best. She says she hurts for her, but doesn't think being here is the best way to deal with it, for her or her family. It's not appropriate or fair to Theo. Celine leaves and goes into the house. Brian, that's the next set of scenes. What'd you think?
Okay, so the scene here with Damon basically drunkenly violating, I guess to an extent, Alice while they're alone for just a second was so damn good because, I mean, that kind of brings up a choice that I thought was very, very smart. And that was the choice of having this set in the 60s. I mean, first of all, fantastic performance from Josh Charles. You know, as a father, it probably wouldn't have taken Celine cutting my wrists, by the way. I probably would have just done it myself had I lost my kid, but that's beside the point. Like, as far as it being set in the 60s, it was just a different time. You know, with even how women reacted and were expected to act with like with that scene and all the stuff that happens with Theo and Celine with the balcony and just everything. Like, had that been nowadays, I think you have Alice sit down and be like, "Listen, bitch, I'm sorry, but you know, blah blah blah." But having this in the 60s, everyone had this almost like duty that they felt like to be polite. So I think that she puts up with so much more than would have been put up with nowadays. You know, and even with Simon, I mean, had Heather come to me and told me that, you know, I would be like, "Oh, okay, well, let's fucking handle this." And I think the same can be said for Mike with Kat. But it was just a different time. And as a viewer, you can accept that and therefore accept the decisions that they're making and how they act because of it. I don't know. Anyway, just brilliant choice. Sorry about the rambling. Also, just amazing acting from Alice when she sees Theo up on that balcony. And when Celine notices that she went through the bushes and her whole face and demeanor just drops. I mean, this is the kind of shit you expect from an Oscar winner. And these two definitely deliver. I mean, you can kind of see something click in Celine just in that moment, like without words. And I definitely think that this is where she shifts to revenge instead of, I mean, I guess the sin of coveting Theo. But uh, you know, I thought it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, no, I agree. These two are two heavyweights, man. Um, you know, with the context of how this movie ends, this bunny apology is so manipulative and cunning, right? Like, you know, she's apologizing to Theo, and it's empty. Like, she wants to seem genuine. I don't think that she is. Again, I think Anne Hathaway is playing this character fucking perfectly. Speaking of drinks that suck, mint juleps are ass, brother. Who's drinking a mint julep? I know it was the time, but man, even in the 60s, I don't know about that. I'm not having no mint julep, I can tell you that. You know, kids would have a hard time understanding that his line of questioning is inappropriate and rude. Even coming from a kid, if I were Celine, I would politely walk away. Like, I'm not going to keep interacting here with Theo's questions. And the scene is pretty creepy, though, man. I mean, Damien is creepy and weird and terrifying with God dang, with Alice. Jesus Christ, terrifying with Alice. And again, Celine, sorry, see, I get these two mixed up way too often here. Celine is not responsible because accidents happen, but this is where this marriage won't end up making it. Brian, you kind of touched on this, because in his mind, she was home. She should have been watching him. It should have never happened. And he's never going to let that go. That's going to stick with him forever. They're never going to move past it. When you think of parents of, I hate to be so blunt, but parent of school shooters, they normally end up divorced because that's not something you can get past. Right. Or your kid dying, that's not really hard to get past unless it's, something that's unavoidable, like a cancer or something like that. Right. I mean, it just does happen in marriages. And at this time, you just stay together, though. That's just what you do, or like what you did. You just toughed it out and stay together. Very, very, I thought it was good writing. I mean, hey, your parents passing in a crash are not the same as losing your son in this way. It's sad. You survived the crash. The trauma stinks, but I don't think this is the time to have a grief off here or have a trauma off. That's not what I would have done, even as a friend. Just me personally. Now, goddamn well that Celine's doing this shit on purpose, and it's just wild, given that it's a movie set in this time. I understand the husband not believing his wife at this time, right? Because that wasn't it just, I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of did a better job than I did, Brian. And now we have this excuse that she was crazy, quote unquote, before this, right? She already had these mental problems. They sent her off for a while. She dealt with all that. Again, we have that subtext now. Holy hell. Grandma ended up being a bitch. God damn. Hit her with a nuclear, get the fuck out of this birthday party. That's in the nicest, most granny way possible, but you knew what she was doing. Celine sucks, but go fuck yourself. That's all I have.
It's always funny to me when people hear people yelling in the other room, and then one of them walks in and addresses the others like they did. There's no way they just heard that. Damien yells, and Celine is just like, Damien doesn't feel well, and he's sorry. Yeah, okay, lady, we heard. I know Theo asking these questions is probably realistic because he's a young kid. But at this point, everything about this little twerp annoys me. Just annoys the piss out of me. And, I'm not condoning Damien being an absolute creep to Alice, but she should not have been in Max's room. Such a nosy Nancy. Both people are wrong in that situation. He's more wrong. Funny how Alice can make it through the hedges when it's Theo on the balcony, and she ruined Celine's flowers. That didn't go unnoticed by me. I'll be honest with you, Alice is the real villain in this movie. I don't care what Celine did. Alice is the villain. And then Granny basically telling Celine that she shouldn't be there. Man, she deserved her pill stolen. What a miserable old hag. Go ahead.
Jesus.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see that coming. But anywho, Celine gives Alice a few more dishes and asks if she did something wrong. And don't y'all hate that shit when you're washing dishes? You're almost done. So say, hey, I got a couple more for you. Piss off, lady. Simon takes the kids to the park, and Alice asks if she put Theo on the balcony to test her. Celine walks away, but stops, saying them spending time together helps them. Alice apologizes for getting there for Theo and not Max, begging for forgiveness. The two hug, and she gets back to the dishes. She sees Granny Jean walking weirdly and finds her collapsed in the garden. Alice screams for help, noticing she's not breathing. Celine runs over, tapping her face, realizing she's dead. Mortician has Alice do paperwork, and she's concerned the pills didn't work. She asks him to perform an autopsy for her husband. This is very hard on him. Alice picks her son up, and they notice she's fixing the broken birdhouse. Celine says it was Theo's idea, and Celine comforts Theo that Jean is with Max, and they have each other. Celine hugs Alice, who doesn't reciprocate, and it's awkward now big time. Alice is in her garden and finds Granny Jean's pillbox. Alice hides it in her nightstand drawer. That night, she hears a noise in the house. She goes downstairs and investigates, noticing Theo is gone. She runs back to her room and notices he's in bed with Simon, who is frustrated with all of this. The mortician tells Alice there was no indication in her blood that Jean's medicine had been taken. Alice discovers the medicine from her nightstand is missing, and we're at Celine's house. Tension is thick as Theo goes to the kitchen to get a snack. Simon proposes a toast to their friendship as Alice is left out. She runs frantically to the kitchen, hearing Theo wheezing. He ate peanut butter cookies and is having an allergic reaction. They rush him to the emergency room as Alice snaps on Celine, who arrives, accusing her of trying to kill her son. Alice is going off, accusing Celine of setting the whole thing up. Alice tells Simon that she killed Jean. We saw her take the medicine, but they found no trace of it in her system. She accuses her of swapping the medicine with a placebo. Simon walks away from Alice after she says Celine wants him to pay for Max. He drags her to the car and shows her the pill box. He says he found it in the garden and she's losing it. He tells her we're not going down this path again and exits the car. She's not believing what happened, reciting the steps she remembers. Back in the hospital, they finally get an update from the doctor. Theo will be okay. They check on Theo, and Simon asks why he ate the cookies, and this dumbass kid just shrugs. Yeah, fuck Theo, dumbass kid. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, so, but something I didn't really understand until it was the Granny Jean stuff. I mean, okay, I assume that Celine, can I stop? Wait a second. Can I stop and say that Celine sounds awful like Selena, as in Selena Kyle, Catwoman, as in the role she played in Nolan's Dark Knight Rises? Sorry. But yeah, I assume Celine dropped some stuff or pills or whatever into her drink to kill her, which, okay, I mean, that seemed dramatic, but old girl was just dropping truth bombs, poured one out for Granny Jean, bitch is a real one. But okay, so she kills her, allegedly, which is fine. It was a spur of the moment thing, but the pills that weren't in her system, I'm honestly confused. Like, this plan to replace her pills would have been like a long time in the making, right? Like, can someone explain it to me, or is that a plot hole?
She was taking daily heart medication, and she replaced them with placebo. So
Right.
when she took her
For
pill,
how long?
well, I mean, she's got to take them daily, and she didn't take them that day, so she had a heart attack and died.
So that goes out of her. I was assuming that it was like in her system from, if you took it a few weeks ago or whatever. So I'm wondering how long she's been planning this. But okay, that makes sense. Also, the other thing that I don't really understand was the cookies on the counter thing. Like, at his age, number one, he knows he can't fucking eat them. We established that in the first group of scenes. So why would he eat them? And also, if Celine's plan was to take Theo all along, like, why is she trying to harm him? Like, I guess I didn't get that either.
I don't know on that point. I mean, maybe at that point she hadn't decided she wanted to take the boy. Maybe at that point she's like, you know what? You let my son die, so now your son's going to die. Also, maybe it was just she knew that they would rush him to the hospital and he would actually be okay. So she just wanted to give the parents a little bit of a heart attack, like a little bit of a scare of their own, just to traumatize them because she hates them. I don't know.
Seems kind of like a leap to make there. Also, I guess I had that in the last set of scenes too. But anyway, I do like how we established how Alice struggles with depression and was institutionalized before. Like, it almost dips into a little bit like, is this just in her head? Or is Celine really doing some shit? Like, I almost wish they would have leaned into that a little even more.
Again, Celine is so, you can say whatever you want, Dustin, but she's so cunning and manipulative. Do you think that I'm capable? Fuck yes, I do. You can't fool me. This bitch is crazy, man. Coming after Granny Jean like this, man. Again, I'm with you on Granny Jean being a little bit suspect, but like, it's no reason to pull her heart medication. You knew that would fucking kill her. Jesus Christ. Anyway, again, I think Hathaway is brilliant here, though. Like, she knows damn well what she did. Sorry. Anne Hathaway is brilliant here.
Oh, man.
And she knows what she did to Jean, and she's playing right in their face. I like it, man. I think it's really brilliantly written here. And look, don't order an autopsy without permission. That's not what you do. That's fucked up, man. I just wouldn't go over to their house. Why are they over at their house again? You're already suspect of this woman and the family, and now you're going over to their house for dinner and drinks. Like, I know the two husbands are friendly or friends, but like, I don't know, given what's happened, I'm not so sure that I would just, I don't know. I just wouldn't go over to their house if I was suspect of her being the one that killed my mother-in-law. Stupid movie character decision, in my opinion. But the whole thing was a setup to begin with, and I can't even believe. I have a hard time fathoming with the context and the knowledge of knowing what you think that she did, going over there and letting your kid eat the cookies in the first place. Like, again, you knew that kid wasn't going to want carrot sticks, and you knew he couldn't eat the trail mix with nuts in it. So the only thing there would be, yeah, go find something in the kitchen, knowing damn well those cookies that he wanted all the way back in the first set of scenes were going to be on that counter. Just golly, that was going to be the minute he wanted snacks. Like, yeah, I'll take you home and get some snacks. We're not going to be over here fucking around in this kitchen. Nope. Again, I understand the husband's anger with her. I really do, because it would be really hard to wrap my mind around the stuff that she was saying as well. This is one of those very few times where, like, not believing the wife kind of works. Normally, I think it's a bad trope and I hate it. Like, just believe the stuff people were telling you most of the time. But I think it works here. And I really just I do buy it. But again, this idea that Celine would just be so incapable after all this stuff that's happened around them, after after how she acted after the accident with her son happened, like, you don't think she has that cold and cunningness in her? Like, yeah, man, I think that she would. I would see her pretty clear. I agree with you guys. This kid being dumb's not the right word, but not being on the up. Oh, man, you knew you couldn't eat these cookies and you did, and then all you did was shrug. Man, piss off, Theo. Damn it, man. I know you've been through a lot, but that's not enough to eat the cookies.
Alice, not Celine, Alice is just off her rocker. Asking Celine if she put Theo on the balcony to mess with her, that's a bold claim to make, especially to the person's face.
He did.
Nah. And then
yes, she did.
Granny's body, when she fell, I don't know how it was positioned like that. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. How was she standing in order to fall and be positioned like that by the fence? She was walking towards the fence, and then the way that her body was laying, I don't know. I just don't know that was realistic. It stood out to me. Alice's face when Celine showed up to help, that was very telling too. She seemed disgusted that it was Celine who responded to her calls for help. And her paranoia is just unhealthy. Next thing we know, she's waking up Simon and Theo because she thinks the boogeyman got them. Sad. She's going out sad. Offering Theo carrot sticks and serving everyone else Chex Mix, that was a cruel joke. I mean, the kid's annoying, but that was just mean. He should have flipped the table. Alice attacking Celine at the hospital was insane. Just an unreal reaction. Simon should have put hands on her. Get your woman in line. Then she tells Simon that she had an autopsy done behind his back. Like, she is a lunatic. I thought Jessica Chastain's acting in this movie, particularly in this set of scenes, was really good. And the scene in the car when he drags her out to the car, it's like, look, is this what you found? I found this in the garden, right where she fell. Like, that was a big twist and kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, is she really insane? Like, did she imagine all this was what we saw real? I think it was a pretty good set of scenes as Alice's intensity is ramping up.
All right, hold on. I got to check you like you're coming to the lane in the post, buddy. You're only defending Celine because it's Anne Hathaway and she's fine. Come on, bro.
No. That's not
way.
it. You can switch
No
the
way
actresses.
You're buying this.
Switch the actresses and I'll still side. Alice is the villain.
You're insane. You're a closet Shane guy from Walking Dead, aren't you, boy? Let me tell you something.
No, definitely no. Let me ask you something. How do you not think Alice is the villain? I mean, she's just jumping to so many conclusions. She's going to tear an ACL jumping these conclusions.
Because, brother, she ends up being right about all of them.
Or, counterpoint, maybe she's wrong about it the whole time, and then Celine's like, you know what, fine. You think I'm crazy? I'll show you crazy. You want to get nuts?
No.
Let's get nuts.
No. If that were the case, she wouldn't have offed her husband, which she clearly did. So, nope, not buying.
He was an abusive alcoholic.
I know he was. See, you're just sticking up for Anne Hathaway, and brother.
You can only push a victim so far until they snap. You can put Lynn Shay in Celine's role, and I'd still defend her. You can put Monaghan, Michelle Monaghan.
Don't.
You can put Michelle Monaghan.
Stop it.
In that role, and I'd still defend
this man is clearly lying.
All right, let's continue on. Alice tells Simon they need to move. He says, no, you need to get some help. He's furious, storming outside and saying he should have her committed again. Alice is cleaning up and notices Celine leaving her house. Alice seizes the moment and goes over to Celine's house to snoop around. She goes into the basement to look through the medicine cabinet, but Celine comes back home abruptly. She notices the basement door open and goes down the stairs and sees the light chain swinging. She goes back upstairs and the coast is clear. Psych, Celine catches her, asking her why she's over here. She asks where Grandma Jean's heart medicine pills are, accusing her of swapping the meds and killing her. Celine is furious and orders her out the house. Alice tells Theo she's been thinking they should do something fun like a beach vacation, but Theo seems about as excited as a man getting a prostate exam. Theo runs to the door, seeing a present on the porch, and Alice snatches it from him, throwing it on Celine's porch, yelling for her to leave them alone. She can't find Theo now and barges into Celine's house calling for him. She hears a noise upstairs and they see Theo on the edge of the balcony. Theo says he's going to where Max and Granny Jean are. No one fights there. It's a better place. Celine apologizes to him and says she and his mommy won't fight anymore. Celine catches him from falling and they all share a hug. Alice hugs Theo and he apologizes. The two women hold hands, somewhat indicating they made peace with each other. Alice tells Simon she does need help, but he tells her of a new house they can rent and they kiss. Alice apologizes for what she's done and tells Celine she's on meds and seeing a doctor. Celine apologizes too, saying she did blame her for Max. Alice breaks the news they're moving in 2 weeks. They both acknowledge they can't live like this and hug. Celine takes Damien a drink and he takes another one. They make small talk until she tells Damien about them moving. Damien says it's amazing how quickly you forgot my son and tells her to leave them alone and not allow Theo over again. Simon is whooping Alice's shit and she says she wants another baby now. Celine takes a rag with chloroform on it and knocks Damien out. She sits him up and takes his hand and slits his wrist with a razor. Brian, that's the next set of scenes. What do you think? And the next set is the ending.
First of all, awful breaking and entering from Alice. Jesus Christ. Leave the cat burglaring to Catwoman. You're pretty awful at it. And what did you fucking do? Like sling the light cable all the way to the ceiling before you hide? Like, is that thing is still swinging like so damn fast whenever Celine walks down there. But whatever. Terrible fucking job, Alice. Like, I can't express that enough. But when Alice throws the present left by Celine back at her and tells her to keep her poison away, I think that's an interesting choice of words, honestly, because that's exactly what she's been doing. I mean, she's been poisoning Theo's little dumbass mind, making heaven out to be this place that he may want to go, talking about how Max is with Granny Jean. Also, like, the 60s, where you can sell a house and move within 2 weeks, the good old days. But it's really good acting from my sister Anne, like when Theo is up on that balcony. Up to this point, I thought she may be trying to kill him, but, performance really showed that the kid maybe took what she said too far, and it makes you wonder if that's what caused Celine to kind of push up her plan a little bit faster. I'm not sure, because the movie does a good job of, like, not really letting you know, even on subsequent rewatches, like, what really was Celine's plan? Was it changing all along? Like, who knows? But that's all I had on the set of scenes.
Just dropping I should have you committed again and not meaning it in a playful way. It's just a wild thing to say to your spouse. Like, good God almighty, that's a freaking brick. Good God. Again, this is probably the first time in the movie that these two have a back and forth that their acting chops really show. They've shown them separately, but this is that first time that you get these two kind of on screen together going back and forth. And I think it's fantastic. And again, this is to Dustin's credit, although I think he's wrong. Anne Hathaway is so good here that she almost does convince me that maybe she's been right this whole time. Maybe she's not crazy. Maybe that, this woman has been wrong. But now you want to see it? I'll show you. I don't think that's right. I think she's absolutely lost her mind ever since the accident happened and blames. No. But anyway, again, almost had me convinced. Didn't, but almost. Again, Theo's going to be a fucked up adult, man. Like, if he remembers any of this, he's going to be super screwed up. I don't care how well he's raised after all this happens. And, you could fight during this time period without the police really giving a shit. These two should have thrown hands, brother. Beat her ass. That's what I would have done. I'd beat Anne Hathaway's ass right there if I were Jessica Chastain. Come on. Again, just more great acting. Not at convincing not just Theo, but Alice, that she's fine. She has their best interest in mind. Like, you're crazy. I promise I'm not doing anything that you're saying, which is total bunk, especially once we find the chlorophyll, more like borophyll. Anyway,
I fucking wrote that exact same thing in the next fucking set of scenes.
Come on, brother.
More like borophyll.
More like borophyll. Great fucking movie. God, Billy Madison. Awesome. again, of course, her husband has made this woman seem crazy, which ends up being a trope, but whatever. I would never take a drink from this woman though if I were Damien. Like, I think I'll pour my own. I'm not gonna take one from you. You seem a little out there right now. And again, you know, but again, sex at a time like this though, man. Like everything that's happened, you've kind of made up, and sex at a time like this, at least try what me and Brian would advise. At least try to do it in the kitchen so the kid can walk in on it. That's the way to do it. That's how you set up the good stuff, brother. Again,
bring me into this.
You agreed with me. Fuck off. Again, last things, setting this up to be a suicide. I don't care what Dustin says. This woman has lost it. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Look, Alice, you're insane, but if you're gonna jump right into B&Es, don't be so sloppy, making noise, leaving the light chain swinging. I mean, this is reckless and careless behavior. Then Theo is such a drama queen. Get your little ginger self down and go play with your stupid bunny. Don't put on these theatrics. Right after Celine saves him, Alice, if there's one thing she has, it's gall. Don't grab my hand like we're cool. You've been insane lately and accuse me of all kinds of unspeakable stuff that I did not do. Unhand me, woman.
Are we sure?
Damien, nice knowing you, pal. Look, I'm not condoning murder, but he was an alcoholic who was downright mean to Celine, and he tried to get fresh with the neighbor lady. He's got to go. I mean, that's just how life works. I'm ready for the finisher.
He just lost his kid. He's drunk.
So he tries to fill up the neighbor lady? That's okay?
Maybe. I mean,
No.
He's drunk. You do crazy things. I'm not saying it's okay, but murder?
Yep.
Oh, damn.
An eye for a head. Ain't that the saying?
All right, here's the finale. Alice is getting ready at the mirror and she hears sirens approaching. Simon asks an officer what happened and he's told of Damien's suicide. Alice opens their home for Celine to stay with him as long as she needs. She lies down in bed in the fetal position and Alice removes her shoes for the Foot Clan to get a little peepee peep. Celine watches Alice and Theo drive away. Later that night, Alice is reading to him and they greet Simon, who makes it home. Alice puts Theo to bed and Simon pours a drink. Alice puts Theo to bed and joins Simon on the couch. They speak on how good a change will be for them in the new house as Alice tells them she's going to go get her some things from next door. Theo goes into Celine's room to say goodnight as Alice makes it inside Celine's house. Celine takes Theo to bed as we see Simon slumped. Celine convinces Theo chloroform is magic potion as Alice finds a pharmacy box key. Alice sees all the different medicines and sees a bottle of chloroform is missing. She runs upstairs and back over. She finds Simon knocked out. Alice goes upstairs with a weapon, but is ambushed by Celine, who gets the rag on her face momentarily. She fights her off and bites her hand. She hits her with the statue she grabbed, knocking her ass down the stairs. Alice is weakened by the chloroform as Celine gets up, following her to the bedroom with Theo. She gently lies her head on Theo's shoulder and puts the rag on Alice's face. She lies Alice on the couch with Simon and washes some dishes. She knocks a gas line loose and picks up the pearls one by one. She blocks Theo's room with a towel and opens a window so he gets fresh air. Alice somewhat wakes up but can't move as we cut to TV static. Celine is sitting before a judge with her attorney seeking custody of Theo. Theo accepts Celine as his new adoptive mother. The two are walking on the beach now and Celine asks what they should do as the breeze blows through their hair. She comforts him saying they have each other and they'll get through it together. The two play on the beach and Celine chases after him as the film ends. Brian, what did you think of the ending?
The start is where I had chlorophyll, more like borophyll, cracked me up. That's funny, Mike. That's funny. And listen, I know we established Damien as in, he's in pharmaceutical sales, but Jesus Christ, at this cabinet and chlorophyll, or chloroform. God, now I got saying chlorophyll, chloroform. And I mean, are we not doing autopsies and discovering the use of chloroform? By the way, I mean it seems pretty. I don't know. Maybe it's 60s thing. I don't know. Also, did I miss how Theo survived this carbon monoxide poisoning? Did she leave his window open? Because if so, I didn't see her do that. And even if she did, it seems kind of like a risky plan. Because even if you don't want to kill the kid too, because if she was going to take him with her, which honestly, I think she should have done and just said that he was spending the night with her or something. But she wouldn't have placed him in his bed like this, and we wouldn't have had that whole scene with her caressing him in the bed and setting it up. I mean, I don't understand that, I guess. But regardless, Celine winning in the end was not what I thought was going to happen. So, like I said, the ending saved the film for me. Little fun fact I didn't notice, but now you will when you watch it. Throughout the film, Alice wears the same pair of round earrings and in different colors just to match her outfits. In that final scene, Celine is seen wearing Alice's earrings.
Look, the last 12 to 15 minutes of this movie is pretty batshit. Honestly, like I really think it's good. The intensity picks up. I forget that like around this time, everyone's drinking every night, man. I could never. My body doesn't recover that well in the morning anymore. I can't be having a drink every single day after work. Not going to get it done. Not on my end, at least. Again, you know what would have really saved Alice's family here? Don't go out there, man. That's all she had to do. Stay inside, protect her family. You know, it's not chlorophyll, it's chloroform, but boroform still sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. Alice has no one to blame but herself here for losing her family, though. Right? Stay home. Don't be so curious about what's going on next door, and you'd be fine. You'd at least have a shot. You don't even have a shot anymore. Again, these women are jacked, by the way. You know, the real life actors work out all the time. They're fit, they're healthy, and that's just probably not what was going on back then. They probably weren't eating at all, to be honest. Back then, the old cigarette and crumpet diet or whatever the fuck it's called, just not going to get it done. But these women are jacked, and I was really hoping they would have a fight scene down the stairs where they were beating the shit out of each other. That's what I was really hoping for. But you can't tell me, Dustin, or anyone else, that this woman is not clearly insane. She's thought out everything. She thought out how to fake a gas leak, all of this stuff, man. You can't tell me she's not insane. I don't care what
Alice
you say,
is
bro.
insane. I agree.
No, Celine, not Celine Dion either. This character in this movie, Celine, is insane. This courtroom scene seems so unrealistic, though. No way Celine wouldn't be investigated for all this happening. I don't care how well she covered her tracks. No way they'd let her go or let Theo go with this woman. I'm not buying it, man. But I thought it was a pretty sick and twisted, not happy ending that comes off like one. Like, feel so uncomfortable with the ending. But again, I thought it kept my interest, especially the last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, Celine just sitting straight up on the bed when Theo came to tell her goodnight. That was so creepy. Not that normally a grieving wife and mother wouldn't be in shock and sitting up, but because we know how it went down and what went down. Great acting from Celine, the character, not even talking about Anne Hathaway there. The character Celine, great acting there. Her drugging Theo is wild. The ending here, this is the best part of the movie. Alice freaks out and runs back home, but she's too late. The tension here is great. We get a good struggle between Alice and Celine. And when it looks like Alice will get away, the chloroform kicks in. She's feeling a little woozy here. Now, again, I'm not saying I condone murder, but Alice was a terrible woman. Simon didn't deserve any of it, though. A more respectable plan would have been to have disposed of Alice and then slowly over time woo Simon and become Theo's stepmom. That's a more respectable plan. I'm fine with that. We cut to the hearing, and this is why I describe this movie on Letterboxd as the most elaborate and well-executed kidnapping I've ever seen. I don't know, Mike, about your point there. This is the 60s, man. I think that she probably would have gotten away scot-free, but to me, it's a good ending, really good ending to a decent enough movie.
Okay, sorry, I meant, it's in my notes, so that's my fault, Dustin. I meant this would never happen today. Back then, absolutely. She would definitely get away with this shit. Dude, people just left their wife and kids in the house to go buy a pack of cigarettes, never came back, moved one town over, 15 minutes down the road, whole new life, whole new family. Happened all the time.
Good old days.
I can't even take a shit without being watched.
I don't think we
have.
I don't think we have anything on social media, so I'll just read one trivia I have. I hope I'm not stealing it from anyone. But this is a third movie starring Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway after Interstellar from 2014 and Armageddon Time from 2022. However, I thought this was cool. This is the first in which they share scenes together. I thought that was really cool. Dustin, you got any trivia you want to share?
I got just a couple. They're not really trivia, but, did y'all know that Anders Danielson Lee, or Lai, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but the guy who plays Simon Do y'all know he's from Norway? Like, it's pretty impressive to me that English is not his first language. I saw when I was watching this movie the second time, I was like, where else have I seen him? I saw him earlier this year. I watched a movie called The Worst Person in the World, a film that's entirely in Norwegian. Like, it's so impressive to me that he didn't have an accent at all in this movie. Also, fun fact about him, he's a medical doctor. He practices medicine between movies and was really at the forefront of attacking COVID relief in Norway during the pandemic. Like, what a boss. Big fan of him. Big ups. And then the last thing I've got is that Josh Charles, who plays Damien, was in the Darwin Awards with David Arquette, but that's too simple. So a more complex route is to say that Anne Hathaway was in Family Guy's Star Wars parody, It's a Trap. That was great. With Patrick Warburton, who of course voices Joe, who is in Scream 3 with Jay and Silent Bob and David Arquette.
Okay, I just have two. First of all, did you know that I did a report on Norway in second grade? And also,
I
my
did not.
last
Thank
bit
you.
of trivia here is the film is an English language remake of the 2018
There you go.
French language version by Belgium's Olivier de Passé, which was an adaptation of the 2012 novel Derrière la Haine by Barbara Abel.
Right, I did
Nice.
see that. That was going to be
Also,
my
I just
fun
want to throw it out
factoid.
there. I recommend The Worst Person in the World. It was just a beautifully depressing movie. Go ahead.
The budget for this film was not publicly available. I could not find it. Checked multiple sources. Asked Grok. Did ChatGPT. Did all that shit. Never found it. But I did find that it grossed just a little bit under $3.5 million at the box office domestically. So that was all the money information I was able to find.
Wasn't this one a Hulu release or like a
I think it
Hulu
released
production?
limitedly. It looks like.
I mean, I meant a
Um,
Hulu production. Like, weren't they the?
Yes. Yes.
Because that makes sense why the
Mhm.
budget's not out there. But Hulu, Netflix, they don't release it.
All right, let's get on to our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Dustin, you want to kick us off so you can jot our scores down?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. My favorite kill was Alice and Damien and the other guy. My least favorite kill was Max because it's just truly tragic and it was 100% Alice's fault and preventable. As
Oh
far
my God.
as my final thoughts and the rating, I think this is what I was saving. So I said I had my issue figured out, and I figured it out. The biggest issue I have with this movie is that they rushed into the story. This movie really could have benefited from them taking more time building these characters' backstories. From, show us how great the neighbors' relationship was for a long time. And then, explore Alice's history of being previously committed. That would have helped a lot. Like, for instance, just show us they've got a good relationship, but then maybe at that first party, Celine asks Alice how she's doing and like allude to the fact that she's recently released from the mental hospital or something. Like, to me, that helps the story a lot. Instead, we just kind of get the vibe that they like each other. And then Alice's mental health history is just tossed in like a random pepperoni and a cheese pizza. The open was good though. And the ending was great. All in all, I gave it a 6.
I'll go next. All right, so my favorite kill is the husband, Damien. I thought that was really creepy how Celine set it all up, slit his wrist with his own hand. I really like that kill. Least favorite kill, I'll go with Max as well. It's just sad to see a little kid lose his life like that. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I think the beginning and the end of the movie is really good. The middle does lose me a little bit with just how unbelievable, like the two, like they're supposed to be like besties, right? And they just don't act like it. Like they lose that really quick. And I do agree with you, Dustin. I think fleshing it out a little more would have worked. But I still enjoy the movie. I gave it a 7.75.
Okay, yeah, I have this. I mean, there's lack of options for favorite kill and least favorite kill. But I think that we should have leaned more into that mental aspect of Alice as well. But I would have liked to have wondered most of the movie if it was all in her head or not. Yeah, I mean, this movie has 2 Oscar winners here in the leads. I mean, the movie is very well made. It's just whether it strikes that certain chord with you or not, and it fell flat for me in the middle, up until the ending. But they did save it, in my opinion. I gave it a flat 6.
Okay. My I don't really have a favorite kill, least favorite kill. I just don't think it's a movie about that. If I had to go least favorite, it would obviously be Max because that's a very, tragic death there. Everyone else that died, except for Alice, you could argue, it's fine. Anyway, I don't get the Alice hate there myself, but whatever. Or excuse me, I don't get the Alice hate there. But again, I think the movie does enough from a thriller aspect to keep me interested the whole time. I think because it starts with such a bang, I want to know the fallout from that accident, who blames who, how everyone's feeling, things like that. And honestly, this movie to me is carried by the weight of the acting performances. Like if you just stuck two okay actors or not so well known, the movie probably doesn't hit the same for me. But because Hathaway and Chastain, and not Brian, do such a great job back and forth with their characters and the acting, it grips me the entire time. Pause. And so I like the story. I understand that it's a little plain. There's definitely more that could be fleshed out, right? Like I think one of the very few instances where this movie could benefit from maybe a little bit more runtime instead of less, just generally speaking, because you want to flesh those characters out and their backstory a little bit more. I think we tried to shove a lot into the 94 minutes or whatever it ended up being. So I definitely agree with that. But all in all, enough to really, it ended up being enough where I liked it to where it inspired Thriller Month. And I ended up picking it because I was going back and forth. I'm like, no, pick this one because you're never going to get to cover it again. And I enjoyed watching it with my wife. We don't get to sit down and watch a ton of movies together. So I think that's really why I picked it, not to be sweet or mushy or anything like that. But all that being said, I gave it a 7.5. I thought it was really well done. And I thought the acting heavyweights really helped out.
All right. That gives us a composite score of 6.8125. IMDb has it at a 6.3. Letterboxd 3.1. Rotten Tomatoes 52%. So we're not too far off from the fan scores. The critics were a little bit.
All right. Yeah, Mike, I enjoyed the pick. And you're right. I agree 100%. The two acting performances from the two leading ladies definitely
Absolutely.
carried it. If it would have been two other maybe unknown actresses, it might not have hit the same. So I agree with that for sure. I'm going to shout out our blood donors and I'll announce our pick for next week. Blood donors, I really appreciate y'all. You'll take a huge burden off of us. Camper level reoccurring, Nina, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, Michelle Mirza, Chris Manley, and Steve Schmidt. Camp counselor reoccurring, Edwin Hernandez Gunn, Joe Swinford, Adrian Aiello, Brian Samick, Andrew Ferguson, Brooke Maley, Heather Superdoc, Jennifer Davis from the Too Close to Home Pod, Dana Tucker, Cole McAlexander, Max K, Madison Arzola, and a new donor, Mr. K. Smith. We really appreciate y'all for donating. It takes a huge burden off of us. And speaking of blood donors, we're doing a blood donor pick next week. Dana, longtime listener and friend of the show, she chose a thriller, which we're going to include in Thriller Month as well. I can't remember what year it is. I think it's 2008, but it has Diane Lane led. It's called Untraceable. I personally like the movie. I enjoy it. Hope you guys do as well. But we'll be back next week as we take on Untraceable.
That's an X.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Just want to remind everybody